The rain turns her windshield into a blur, and that's the only reason she almost doesn't see them. For shapes. Low to the ground, right where the shoulder meets the center line. She hits the brakes harder than she means to. The patrol car fishtails on wet asphalt and stops 30 feet short. Through the downpour, through the beating wipers, she sees them. A mother dog and 3 puppies sitting in the road like they're waiting for permission to move. Except they're not moving. Not scattering from the headlights. Just sitting there. Rain drumming against their small bodies hard enough that she can see it from here. She throws the car into park and grabs her flashlight, already knowing something is very wrong. Dogs don't sit in roads during rainstorms. They don't arrange themselves in careful rows while traffic passes. They don't just wait. The rain hits her the moment she opens the door. Cold, heavy, soaking through within seconds. She moves toward them, flashlight cutting through the dark, and that's when she sees it. The rope. Braided. Brown. Stretched tight from the mother's neck to a wooden post 10 feet behind her. Someone tied her here. In the rain. On a road. And drove away. If you're still watching, it means you didn't look away. Dogs like her don't survive because people feel bad, they survive because someone chooses to stop. Subscribe not for this story but for the one still tied somewhere waiting to see if anyone slows down. The mother dog's eyes track the flashlight beam but her body doesn't move. Can't move. The rope is wound around her neck twice. No collar, just rough fiber pressed directly against wet fur. The other end is tied to a roadside post, and the knot looks deliberate. Intentional. The officer's stomach turns. The 3 puppies sit in front of their mother in a small shivering row. Maybe 8 weeks old. Their tiny bodies are shaking so hard from the cold they look like they're vibrating. They haven't scattered. Haven't tried to run. They're staying with their mother. And their mother can't go anywhere. Jesus. The officer whispers. She approaches slowly, boots splashing through pooling water. The mother's ears flatten but she doesn't growl. Doesn't bare teeth. Just sits there. Spine straight despite the rope pulling at her neck. Watching with an expression that isn't quite fear. It's resignation. Like she's been waiting for something, help or worse or nothing, and has stopped trying to guess which one will come. A car passes too close. Its headlights sweep over them. The puppies flinch. The mother doesn't. She's beyond flinching. The officer circles around trying to see the rope better. The mother's head turns as far as the restraint allows, tracking the movement. Her breathing is quick. Shallow. The rope is soaked, swollen from rain, pulled so tight there's no slack at all. Every time the mother shifts even slightly, it digs in. Who did this to you? The smallest puppy makes a sound. Not quite a whimper, more like a question, and tries to press closer to its mother's front legs. But the mother can't lower her body to shelter them. Can't curl around them. The rope keeps her upright. Exposed. Useless. The officer reaches for her radio. Dispatch, I need animal control at mile marker 17 on Route 9. For dogs abandoned, one physically restrained. Heavy rain. They're in the roadway. Copy. Estimated response time 40 minutes. 40 minutes. In this cold. In this rain. With traffic. Can we get that faster? Negative. That's the closest unit. The officer clips the radio back and looks at the mother dog. At the 3 puppies shivering in front of her. At the rope keeping them all trapped in the worst possible place. The mother is still watching her. Still waiting. And in the way her chest rises and falls, too fast, too shallow, the officer sees something that breaks her. This dog is trying to stay calm for her babies. 40 minutes might be too long. The officer's fingers are numb from the cold, but she tries again. Has to. The other 2 puppies have crawled to the blanket now. All 3 huddled together under the thin material that's already soaked through. It's not enough. Won't be enough. She moves toward the post this time instead of the dog. Maybe if she can untie it from that end, she can create slack without getting too close to the mother's teeth. The grass is tall here, wet and slippery, and she has to brace herself against the post to see the knot. It's not a quick tie. It's the kind of knot someone takes time with. Double wrapped. Pulled tight. The kind that says, "I don't want this coming undone." The officer pulls out her multi-tool, flipping to the blade. The metal is cold against her palm. She looks back at the mother, whose eyes are locked onto the knife now. Body rigid. "I'm cutting the rope," the officer says. "Not you. Just the rope." She positions the blade against the wet fiber and starts sawing. The rope is thick, swollen from rain, and it doesn't want to give. The mother's breathing becomes audible, short, rapid pants that fog in the cold air. Every pull of the blade makes the rope vibrate, and the vibration travels down to the dog's neck. The officer works faster. Halfway through. 3/4. The rope starts to fray. A car approaches. Too fast. Way too fast for rain and visibility. The officer looks up and sees headlights bearing down, close to the center line, right where the puppies are huddled. No. She drops the knife and runs, boots sliding on wet pavement, throwing herself between the blanket and the approaching vehicle, arms spread wide. The car swerves. Honks. The spray from its tires hits her like a wall, but the puppies are behind her, untouched. The mother is making sounds now, high-pitched, frantic whines that cut through the rain. The officer looks back and sees the dog pulling against the rope with everything she has, front paws scrabbling against wet pavement, trying to reach her puppies, trying to get to them. The rope is cutting so deep the officer can't see the braiding anymore. "Stop," the officer calls out. "Stop, you're hurting yourself." But the mother doesn't stop. Can't stop. Her puppies were in danger and she couldn't move, and that's broken something inside her. The officer runs back to the post, grabs the half-cut rope with both hands, and tears. The wet fibers resist, stretch, then finally snap. The mother lurches forward, stumbles 3 steps and collapses next to the blanket, next to her puppies, and the puppies crawl over her immediately, pressing against her body, making small distressed sounds. The officer stands there, chest heaving, hands bleeding slightly from rope burn, watching the mother dog finally curl around her babies. The rope is still around her neck. None of them are safe yet. The officer approaches with a towel from her emergency kit, moving slowly. The mother's eyes track her, but she doesn't move away. Can't really. Her body is shielding the puppies now, all of them tucked beneath her chin and against her belly, and moving would mean exposing them. "I need to get that rope off your neck," the officer says. The mother's breathing changes, becomes shallow again. Controlled. The officer recognizes the shift. Surrender isn't the same as trust. It's just the absence of other options. She kneels in the rain 2 feet away, the towel draped over her arm. Up close she can see what the rope has done. The fur around the mother's neck is matted dark with rainwater and something else. Raw skin underneath where the fiber has rubbed and pulled. No collar. No padding. Just rope against flesh for however many hours she's been here. "This is going to hurt," the officer says quietly. "I'm sorry." She reaches forward. The mother's ears flatten, but she doesn't pull away. The officer's fingers find the knot, wet, tight, pressed against the base of the dog's skull. She works carefully, trying to loosen it without pulling, but the rope has swollen so much there's barely any give. Every tug makes the mother's body tense, makes her breathing stop for a second. One of the puppies whimpers and the mother's attention splits, torn between the pain at her neck and the need to monitor her babies. The officer uses that moment to get a finger under the rope, creating the smallest amount of space. Then another finger. The mother makes a low sound, almost a growl but not quite. More like a warning. "I'm allowing this, but barely." "Almost," the officer mutters. Her fingers are cramping, cold and clumsy, but she finally finds the loop and starts to work it free. The knot loosens. One wrap unwound. Then the second. The rope falls away. The mother's head drops immediately, and she takes her first full breath in who knows how long, deep shuddering, the kind that sounds like relief and pain at the same time. There's a raw ring around her neck, dark and wet. The officer drapes the towel over the mother's back, over the puppies, creating a small pocket of warmth between them and the rain. The mother flinches at the first touch but then settles. One of the puppies, the smallest one, the one with the white patch, pokes its nose out from under the towel and looks at the officer with dark, bewildered eyes. This puppy doesn't know yet that someone decided it wasn't worth keeping. That its mother was tied to a post and left. That the rain and cold were supposed to be the end of all of them. Not today, the officer tells it. Not like this. She opens the back door of her patrol car and returns with a plastic crate. The mother watches it like it's a trap. The heating vents rattle as they blow warm air into the cabin, but it'll take time to make a difference. The officer glances in the rearview mirror every few seconds, watching the crate, watching for movement. The puppies are making small sounds, not quite crying, more like confused questioning. The mother is silent. The officer's phone buzzes in the cup holder. The shelter, probably calling to say animal control is finally en route. She doesn't answer. She's already 20 minutes into the 40-minute drive. And turning back would mean more time in the cold for animals who've already lost too much of it. The rain drums on the roof, steady and loud, and underneath it she can hear the mother's breathing. Still quick, still shallow, but at least breathing. You can relax, the officer says to the rearview mirror. To the eyes she can see through the plastic grating. Nobody's going to hurt you. The mother doesn't blink. Doesn't shift. Just keeps watching, because what else is there to do when you're trapped in a moving box and the last time someone put you in a vehicle it ended with a rope around your neck? One of the puppies, the bigger one, starts to whine, a high thin sound that speaks of cold and hunger and something deeper. The officer doesn't know when they last ate, but given the mother's visible ribs, she suspects it's been a while. 15 more minutes, she says. Though she's not sure if she's reassuring them or herself. The road is mostly empty at this hour. Just the occasional passing headlight and the rain turning everything outside into watercolor streaks. The officer's hands are still shaking slightly on the steering wheel. Adrenaline wearing off, leaving behind just the cold and the weight of what she found. Someone tied that dog to a post. Took the time to make sure the knot was secure. Left 3 puppies too young to survive on their own. Drove away. She wonders if they looked back. In the mirror the mother shifts. Just slightly. The puppies have stopped whining, gone quiet in that way that means they've exhausted themselves, and the mother is licking one of them. Small, careful licks across its wet head. Cleaning away the rain and road grime. It's the first act of care the officer has seen from her. Not protection, she's been protecting them this whole time. Care. Tenderness. The kind of thing you do when immediate danger has passed and you can remember you're a mother and not just a shield. The officer's throat tightens. You're a good dog, she says softly. A really good dog. The mother's ears twitch. She stops licking and looks up. Eyes meeting the officer's in the mirror for just a second. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of understanding. This vehicle is different. This human is different. The ending might be different too. The intake area is bright and warm and smells like disinfectant and dog food. A woman in scrubs looks up from behind the counter. Her expression shifting from routine to concern the moment she sees the officer carrying the crate. I called ahead, the officer says. 4 Shiba Inus. Found on Route 9. One was tied to a post. The woman's face hardens. Jesus. Bring them back. The officer follows her into an examination room where the fluorescent lights make everything look stark and clinical. She sets the crate on the floor and opens the door. The mother doesn't move. It's okay, the officer says, though she's not sure who she's talking to. You can come out. The woman in scrubs crouches down, peering into the crate. How long was she tied? Don't know. At least a few hours. The rope was soaked through. And the puppies? 8 weeks, maybe. They're cold. Hungry. I don't know the last time they ate. The woman nods and moves to a cabinet, pulling out towels, a heat lamp, a shallow dish. Can you get them out? Or do I need to tip the crate? The officer looks at the mother, at the way she's still curled defensively around her puppies, at the way her eyes are too wide and too watchful. Let me try. She reaches into the crate slowly, hand open, palm up. The mother's lips pull back slightly. Not quite a snarl but a warning. The officer stops moving. Waits. The mother's breathing is rapid again, panicked because this is it. This is where the puppies get taken. Where they're separated. Where everything she protected them from finally happens anyway. I'm not taking them from you, the officer says quietly. I need you to all come out together. That's all. She doesn't know if the mother understands words or tone or neither. But after a long moment the dog shifts. Crawls forward. Emerges from the crate one painful inch at a time. Her puppies following behind because they don't know how to do anything else. The vet tech wraps towels around each puppy, quick, efficient movements. The puppies make confused sounds but don't fight. And the mother watches every movement with the kind of intensity that suggests she's memorizing exactly where each puppy is placed. The mother next. The tech says, holding out a larger towel. The officer expects resistance but the mother just allows it. Stands still while the towel is draped over her back. While hands run quickly across her body checking for injuries. While her neck is examined and photographed. She's gone somewhere else mentally, the officer thinks. Some place where she doesn't have to be present for this. The neck's not infected, the tech says. But it's raw. We'll clean it, apply ointment. She'll need to wear a cone for a few days. And the puppies? Underweight. Dehydrated. But nothing that food and warmth won't fix. She looks up. You got to them in time. In time. The officer sits in her patrol car in the shelter parking lot. Engine off, writing up the report while the details are still fresh. Abandoned animals, criminal restraint, negligent endangerment. The words feel inadequate for what she witnessed, but they're what the system understands. Location, Route 9, mile marker 17 time. 2137 condition. 1 adult Shiba Inu. Restrained via rope to roadside post. 3 juvenile Shiba Inus approximately 8 weeks old. Unrestrained but unable to leave adult. Heavy rain. Temperature approximately 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Animals located in active roadway. Adult showed signs of prolonged restraint. Abrasions on neck, raw skin. Her phone buzzes. A text from her sergeant. You still on shift? She checks the time. 23:20. She was supposed to clock out 3 hours ago. Found abandoned dogs. At shelter now. Writing report. Everything okay? She looks at the bright windows of the shelter. Thinks about the pen inside where 4 dogs are finally warm and dry and safe. Yeah, everything's okay now. She finishes the report, sends it through the system and sits back. Her uniform is still damp, her hands still smell like wet rope, and she's exhausted in a way that goes beyond physical. But there's something else underneath the exhaustion. A quiet satisfaction. The kind that comes from doing the right thing when it would have been easier to just call it in and keep driving. Her phone rings. The shelter. Officer? It's Karen from intake. Is something wrong? No, everything's fine. Do you want to name them? For the records. You found them, so. The officer hasn't thought about names. She's been thinking about them as the mother and the puppies. Like they're concepts instead of individuals. But they're not concepts. They're specific beings who live through specific cruelty and deserve specific identities. The mother, she says slowly. Call her Hope. Even if she doesn't feel it yet. And the puppies? She thinks about the way they sat in the rain, about their small bodies shaking, about how they stayed together even when staying together meant staying in danger. Faith, grace, and chance. Because they all needed one. There's a pause on the other end of the line. Those are good names. They're good dogs. Yeah, they are. Another pause. Officer? Thank you. For not just driving past. The officer doesn't know what to say to that, so she just says, I'll check in tomorrow. See how they're doing. They'd probably like that. Hope especially. She keeps watching the door. The words hit harder than they should. The mother dog watching the door, waiting to see if the officer who saved her will disappear like everyone else who mattered. Tell her I'll be back, the officer says. I'm not going anywhere. The officer shows up at the shelter at 8 a.m. with coffee she doesn't need and nervous energy she can't explain. She tells herself she's just following up for the report, making sure the documentation is complete, but she knows that's not why she's here. Karen meets her at the door. They're in recovery kennel 3. The puppy's 8. Hope hasn't touched her food yet. How long? Since last night. She's drinking water, but... Karen shrugs. Sometimes it takes time for them to believe the food isn't going to disappear. The officer follows her down a hallway lined with kennels, each one holding a different story of abandonment or abuse or bad luck. The sound of barking echoes off concrete walls, but when they reach Kennel 3, there's only silence. Hope is lying in the corner, her 3 puppies arranged against her belly. The heat lamp is still glowing above them. There's a bowl of food nearby, untouched, and a water bowl that's half empty. Can I go in? The officer asks. She's not aggressive, just careful. The officer opens the kennel door slowly and steps inside. Hope's eyes open immediately. She wasn't sleeping, just resting, and she lifts her head. The puppies stir but don't wake. The officer sits down on the floor, back against the wall, far enough away that Hope doesn't have to feel crowded. Hey, the officer says softly. Remember me? Hope's ears move forward slightly. It's the smallest possible acknowledgement, but it's something. They sit in silence for a while. The officer doesn't push, doesn't reach out, just exists in the same space and lets Hope decide what that means. Minutes pass. 5. 10. The puppies wake up one by one, yawning with tiny mouths, and immediately start investigating the food bowl. They're young enough that food still means certainty, still means safety. Hope watches them eat with an expression the officer can't quite read. Pride maybe. Or relief. Or just the exhausted vigilance of a mother who's been responsible for too much, for too long. You did good, the officer tells her. Keeping them alive. Keeping them together. That took everything you had, didn't it? Hope's tail twitches. Not quite a wag, she's not there yet, but movement. Acknowledgement. The officer reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small piece of dried chicken. She holds it out on her palm, low and non-threatening. You should eat something. Hope looks at the food. Looks at the officer's face. The calculation is visible. Want versus risk. Hunger versus the possibility that accepting anything from a human hand is a mistake. She doesn't take it. The officer places it on the floor midway between them and pulls her hand back. No pressure. It's there if you want it. When the officer leaves 20 minutes later, the dried chicken is still on the floor. But when Karen checks an hour later, it's gone. The officer has been coming every day. Sometimes in the morning before her shift. Sometimes at lunch. Sometimes late at night when the shelter is quiet and the only sounds are the breathing of sleeping animals. Hope recognizes her now. The ears prick forward when she hears the officer's footsteps in the hallway, before she even appears at the kennel door. The puppies, Faith, Grace, and Chance, have learned to associate the officer with playtime, with the crinkly toys she brings and the patient way she lets them climb on her uniform and chew on her bootlaces. But Hope is different. Hope is learning something slower, something harder. She's learning that not all humans who show up will leave forever. That some of them come back. Hey girl, the officer says, sitting on the floor of the kennel like always. Hope is lying with her puppies, but this time when the officer settles, Hope lifts her head and slowly, carefully scoots forward. Just 6 inches. Close enough that the officer could reach out and touch her if she wanted to. The officer doesn't reach out. She's learned that too. That closeness is offered, not taken. The puppies are getting adopted next week, the officer says quietly. A family with a big yard. Kids who are gentle. They're going to be okay. Hope's ears flick back like she heard the words, or maybe just the tone, the sadness underneath. Because the puppies leaving means Hope will be alone again, and being alone is what happened before, is what led to the rope and the rain and the roadside. But you, the officer continues, her voice steadier now. I've been thinking about you. She pulls out a folded piece of paper from her pocket, an adoption application, filled out in her careful handwriting, approved by the shelter director this morning. I know you don't trust easily. I know home might not feel safe for a long time, but I've got space, got a yard, got time. She unfolds the paper so Hope can see it, even though Hope can't read, even though this gesture is more for the officer than the dog. And I've got patience, however long it takes. Hope is watching her now, fully focused, and the officer realizes this is it, this is the moment. Not a moment of triumph or resolution. Just a moment of offering. A possibility. What do you think? The officer asks. Want to come home? Hope doesn't wag her tail. Doesn't leap up with joy or show any of the signs that shelter volunteers hope for when they talk about adoption-ready dogs. She just takes one more small step forward. Close enough now that the officer can feel the warmth of her body, can see the healing scar on her neck where the rope was. And then finally, Hope lowers her head and rests it, just barely, just for a moment, against the officer's knee. It's not trust yet. Not completely. But it's permission. Hope didn't learn trust all at once. She learned it because someone kept coming back. Right now there are dogs still watching the door, wondering if the human who mattered is gone for good. If you felt this story, don't disappear like the others did. Subscribe. Staying is how these stories survive.